let me ask you a question. You know, I don't know how you're going to, whether you want to address that question at all. But you know, with the return of the Taliban to Kabul, what is the thinking in Pakistan? Is it a feeling of triumphalism in Rawalpindi that our boys have won the day in Afghanistan, or are there concerns about an influx of refugees from Afghanistan to Pakistan and a rise of terror organizations like the TTP and Daesh and other organizations in Afghanistan, and perhaps also in the tribal areas of Pakistan?
I think here there is no one feeling, and which is absolutely understandable. I'm very grateful because no one, concept, no one conclusion is thrust down upon people. Even within the establishment, there will be different voices. Amongst the people, of course, there will always be. For example, as far as triumphalism is concerned, some people are, thinking about some people from all walks of life, including the military, the former military, the tribesmen, some normal, they would be feeling quite happy. And they said, we, not because of the Taliban, but the mighty power has been defeated, has been rolled back. Not on that. There are others who are expressing concerns, and who am I going to say that you should not have those concerns? Although my views I have already said, if the situation is not conducive for the Talibanization, they will not come. But they will be talking about that, and most of them, not because they are genuinely thinking about it, because there is that element here, like in Afghanistan, so I suppose in India too, whose interests, the core interests, may not be here, right here in the region or in the country. The families are there, or some, we are looking for some sort of a favor from Washington, from London, from other places. So they will be also trying to voice such voices in which they are trying to convey the West, no, actually we are on your side, and we're going to do everything possible not to make this a complete victory of the region or the Talibanization. They will be there. But essentially, I think most of the people understand, especially those who are not talking, those on the street, they have better sense. They said, this thing has happened, now we will see what happens next. So they're very practical. So a businessman is thinking about if they can do some business there. And the others, and there are others who think, now are we going to finally get this place, Afghanistan, after 20, 30 years, at least in a situation in which we can reach out to Central Asia, for example. So all these feelings do exist at the same time, and why not? True.
Right, Mr. Dulat, on just a few days ago, India joined countries like Germany, Qatar, Turkey in calling for an immediate ceasefire in Afghanistan, and asserted that any government imposed by military force in Kabul, meaning by the Taliban, would not be recognized. Do you think that is the, if indeed Kabul is taken by force by the Taliban, should India go by this statement, or should India recognize it anyway?
I would think that we should recognize it. In course of time, we may not want to recognize it immediately. But, you cannot compare yourself with the Germans. I mean, the Germans can afford to make a statement like that, but we are far too close for comfort. And, this question that you raised earlier, and General Saab was also discussing, if when we come to militancy and then terrorism that, people are afraid of, then I think Pakistan has more reason to be, afraid of the consequences, because they're right there next door. And like you mentioned, the TTP and whatever, or the Daesh, I mean, they are much closer to Pakistan than to us. And terrorism, we know, has affected Pakistan. So I think Pakistan needs to be also concerned on that matter. As far as this thing that, what is the reaction in Rawalpindi, I think the general is right when he says that, there will be triumphalism. I mean, I'm sure there would be celebrations also in Pindi or in Islamabad. But that does not mean that is the official line going forward. So I think you have to wait and watch. A lot is happening, and I think a lot more is going to happen. And I think I get the sense. I hope I'm wrong, but I think we've been a bit out of it. You know,
Right. Right.
all the while that the Americans were in dialogue with the Taliban, I don't think we got the full hang of it, or even the repercussions of the American withdrawal, whether we understood it or not fully.
That's right. That's right. General Durrani, let me come to you. I mean, if the argument is that Taliban is perhaps a somewhat changed entity today, what explains? I think this is really on the minds of a lot of people, right? Internationally, in India and in Pakistan, what explains the atrocities being committed by the Taliban on its way to Kabul in the recent weeks and the recent months? How do we explain that?
I only explain it because by saying that usually people come to the conclusion because they wish that. This wishful conclusion, if you are against the Taliban, you will be either saying or believing everything that you think should be conveyed. How atrocious is going to be. Right now, interestingly, I mean, we have known how the United States and United Kingdom play these things together, sometimes good cop, bad cop, for example. The propaganda against the Taliban or the situation in Afghanistan has been the strongest in UK, not in the United States, not somewhere else. We here, for whatever reasons, we don't hear about that. In fact, there are a number of people who follow these things very closely, and they think that no, those worst fears are not coming true. In fact, most of the places, the atrocities, etc., are not taking place. Yes, I think some of the old red lines of the Afghans about about certain things like the women not going out without mahram and so on and so forth, that may be taking place. God knows up to what extent that goes. But ultimately, what one wants to say is that in due course, whether these are the Taliban or other Afghans, they do become pragmatic, realistic, and then take on a policy that they think is going to serve them well. So that is likely to be, that's what I assess. It will be, slowly muddling through, you come to a situation, which is the situation which will be the natural, almost inevitable result of the total environment.
Right. Mr. Dulat, let me, I mean, because we only have a few more minutes left, slightly change gears and talk about a little bit on Kashmir and India, Pakistan. In an interview to the print this year in April, Mr. Dulat, you said that India should not shy away from discussing Kashmir with Pakistan. You also mentioned that if Modi ji can meet all the mainstream political leaders, including the PDP chief Mehbooba Mufti, it will reassure the Kashmiris that they will have a level playing field whenever elections are held and whenever the democratic process moves forward. Do you then disagree with the official view today, seems to be the official view today, that we can resolve Kashmir without talking to Pakistan about it?
Yeah, there have always been two ways of going about this. That do we need to talk to Pakistan at all on Kashmir? You see, the reason Pakistan comes in, or the reason I say that we should talk to Pakistan, is that with Pakistan, or in the Pakistani mind, this has always been an issue. So if you carry Pakistan along, then there is that much advantage. But it's not totally necessary. I mean, if we can deal with the Kashmiris directly, maybe for the time being, Pakistan could be bypassed. But the thing is that we need to deal with the Kashmiris. There is an urgent need for a revival of the political and democratic process. And, I think the Prime Minister made a good beginning in June when he met all the leaders. But what happened after that was that there was a lot of expectation in Kashmir politically that more will happen, and there would be a forward movement. Now, what is coming out officially from New Delhi is that yes, the delimitation process is taking place, and we hope to have elections. But nobody talks of the question of restoration of statehood, which is a crucial question in the Kashmiri mind. So, again, the general feeling is that possibly elections will happen before the statehood is revived or restored. Fair enough, but at least the Kashmiri must understand or be persuaded or believe that there will be restoration of statehood, to which the government of India is committed in Parliament.
If I may just quickly, happy?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Just couple, 1 or 2 slides. The time to bypass the Kashmiris or India is over. After the 5th of August, there is no chance. We've already lost, according to those pleas, were plenty of goodwill in Kashmir. After 5th of August, there's no chance that Pakistan can be bypassed, or for that matter, so many Kashmiri leadership can be bypassed. So that game does not seem to be working anymore. And I am going to make a very strong suggestion that it is still time to get involved the 3 or 4 major factors, India, Pakistan, the Kashmiris, so that maybe we can try, like we used to tell the Americans, we can try and do some damage control on our eastern border.
That's an interesting point, Durrani. Both of you seem to agree that the madness between India and Pakistan must come to an end. But there seems to be a difference in the methodology. Mr. Dulat seems to be, making the argument that we must make more gestures. There should be symbolic outreach. There should be conversations, etc. Durrani, you seem to be making the argument that there should be more durable structure, so there should be more concrete action on the ground. To my mind, these are pretty, dramatically different, let's say, conclusions. If I may come to you, Durrani, first, and then I'll go to Mr. Dulat.
Yeah, absolutely. This is something on 1 or 2 points on which only we differed in Spike Veronica's discussion. And I'm happy that my point of view as far as way forward was, as in a strategic framework, it was acceptable to some sense that we not only make a structure, but we also make it work. It does not have to come out of the open. It keep on working in the background so that those damages that people make, the establishment make because of the expediency of a particular circumstances, they can be taken care of. Otherwise, people will shoot to their mouth and, 10 years work goes down the drain. It happens. And that is why that structured work was more important. Now, the environment that I've talked about post 5th of August 2019, in that, if a little bit of that has been followed in case of the ceasefire, Mr. Dulat and myself, we can take a little credit for it. If this is going to remain there, because one step has been taken, then both of us would say, again, a good opportunity lost because we were not building up on it. Now, that is that was the opinion, and that I still believe that will serve us better, despite the very bad situation that has taken place during the last about 2 years because of Kashmir. But it can be redeemed, it can be done. You only have to find the right people to start working on the back channels and ensure that the people, as I said, who keep shooting with their mouth or who make politically expedient statements, that this can be, to start with, prevented from being done. But even if they have done it, and lately in Pakistan and Islamabad also a couple of things have been said, that they can be, or that some damage control can be done. Because, relying upon the people's memories, another few weeks, few months, something good has happened and people will forget about that.
Yeah. Mr. Dulat, your thoughts on that, on the question of...
you see, let me put it like this. I've got the question. So,
go ahead.
The thing is that General Saab and I never disagree. It's only that we have different ways of getting to something. And surprisingly, on India-Pakistan, General Saab prefers the diplomatic route. You know, he's always been obsessed with the composite dialogue, which to my mind has taken us or got us nowhere. So I look at it more politically, you know, and for instance, at this point of time, and even in the past, I've always said that if we ultimately have to move forward, back channel is very good, and dialogue is at any point of time between anybody is good, and if the NSAs are talking, that's the best. But you know, more than that, you require something at the top. So a summit is very, very important. You know, in 2015, India and Pakistan were going nowhere. And then out of the blue, Prime Minister Modi visited Dravid and surprised everyone. And we thought now we were beginning to move, but then again, we've come to a full stop. Now, I think the ceasefire has been a very positive development, the most positive in recent times. And I thought we must build on this, but we tend to go into denial. First we go into denial, then Pakistan endorses it and goes into double denial, unfortunately. To my mind, however it has to be conjured, it is time for Imran Khan to visit Delhi. And the way to conjure it, the way to work on it, I think before that, Ajit Doval should be invited to Lahore. These are, to my mind, practical ways of going about it, you know. Otherwise, yes, carry on with whatever dialogue is going on, but don't stop it.
That's the second point on which we disagree. And that is that Mr. Dulat is so much, you know, so enthusiastic whenever a spectacular event takes place. Modi crash landing in Lahore after bad-mouthing Pakistan in Kabul, in Dhaka, everywhere else. He comes, attends a marriage, and he thinks it is a breakthrough that is taking place. No, that was only a gimmick. Everyone here understood it was a gimmick. And the real thing was still to come. Ceasefire, we can agree because of the lives that it saves. But since it has not been built up, since the second follow-up has not taken place, so who is now going to remember ceasefire to the extent in which we say, no, we are on the right track? So that, I think, is the difference in approach that Mr. Dulat and myself have. We ultimately do believe that something good should come out, but not like this. But not by the theatrics of a showman. And there are a couple of showmen. I mean, Mr. Dulat knows that it's not only Gujarat doctrine, it's also, you know, people like many others, but lately, you know, Vajpayee, who worked solidly, who showed sincerity, and that is why his actions became more popular in Pakistan. Modi has no chance, if you ask me. Whether we invite Duval or not invite Dulat, that will not make it.
You see, if we believe Dr. Manmohan Singh, and he's the last person to not speak the truth, then in 2006-07, we were pretty close to getting to an agreement between him and Musharraf, and Pakistan and Musharraf kept waiting for Dr. Manmohan Singh to visit Pakistan. I think that was a huge window of opportunity which we missed. So it's not that people talking at the top don't get us anywhere. Ultimately, that's what needs to happen. So it didn't happen because Dr. Manmohan Singh couldn't go to Pakistan, and Musharraf kept waiting.
You know, also, you know, now that we've spoken about the back channel, Durrani, the problem is that I agree with you. I agree with the Dulat Sahab when he says we probably need a summit and all that. But, you know, on the question of the back channel, I think the problem with the current back channel really is it's a need-to basis. When you need a conversation, you sort of take the phone or you go to a third country and you meet the other person. But there is no dedicated sort of either dedicated interlocutors nor a dedicated sustained sort of channel like the one we had from 2004 to 2014 between Tariq Aziz and Ambassador Lamba. So do you think this kind of a, you know, not so dedicated sort of a back channel, does it have any future at all?
If the back channel is to convey a certain message every 6 months, then that back channel is not worth it. They can do damage control at times, but they actually work in certain things, and their result, substantial result, even if it comes up once in 2 years, like a ceasefire, and another 2 years, and we find out there is something else has happened, then we know that it's back channel. But in between, if there is a scuttling of any effort that has taken place, that again means that the back channel may have taken care of an event, but it is not taken care of a strategy or a policy. So I do not know if there is a back channel, what type of a back channel it is, but I assume that there must be some people in contact. Countries are always keeping contact. And if they did do something, and after that did not ensure that people again, habitually will not come and create just the opposite effect, then that back channel will try and keep control of the events without coming in front. That is also something that they do not have to, give a message that we are still there, we are alive, please don't ignore us. No, that's not the type of back channel that I understand. And of course, why forget that there are always complementary channels, like the secret channels, the intelligence agencies and so on. They can mutually reinforce each other, or sometimes just to give the right type of message to their own people, sometimes can also come up and try to convey that, yes, we are working, but it's not working. These are those things about which, if you know how to do a little bit of tightrope walking, then one would know how to keep many balls in the air, because it's not going to be a linear process at all.
Dulat Saab, do you agree with the kind of track to that back channel we have at this point of time? As I sort of described it, it's not a dedicated back channel. It seems to be one that is used when there is a crisis, when there's a requirement. You've seen quite a few of these kind of back channel initiatives between India and Pakistan. Where do you stand? What's your take on this?
See, I don't totally buy this, that, it's need to based on the need to have at any given point of time. I think there is a back channel always at whatever level. And what it is today is a bit dicey. One doesn't know, because when the back channel between, if you remember, between General Janjua and Ajit Doval was quite well known, that they met in Bangkok. So that was an open thing. Today, both sides are being more coy about it. The question is whether Ajit meets General Bajwa or has ever met General Bajwa. Now, that's a tricky one to answer. And logically, they should be meeting. But if they're not meeting, as Mohit Yusuf suggests, that there is no dialogue, then it's a bit unfortunate, that you start something and then you go into denial. And he says that, Mohit says he has never met Ajit. So it's all a bit, one doesn't know what's happening. But I still believe that at some level, there would be a back channel, maybe a lower level. Maybe the guys at the top who should be doing it are not happy with each other, or whatever it is, they can't, although whatever one reports one gets from across is that General Bajwa is a very, very genial and person, and somebody who wants to take the process forward. Whether that is true or not, one doesn't know. And I also made this point some time back, I think it was after the ceasefire, that in 2005, 6, 7, whatever it was, we had a larger window of opportunity. Right now, this window of opportunity is much narrower, because I think Bajwa retires in a year or so, and he doesn't have much time. And then again, somebody new comes, and then you say, but there is no Bajwa, who do we talk to? Like Musharraf, when we first got into contact with Musharraf, we said, how can you talk to Musharraf? Because he's the villain of Kargil. And once he disappeared from the scene, then everybody said, but oh, he is the only person we could talk to. You know, all this doesn't add up properly. It doesn't make sense, because I think there has to be a conscious effort either to negotiate and continue to negotiate, you know, Manishankar Iyer used to say that, you know, a dialogue which will never end. And so, or we say that we don't talk to each other, which in today's day and age seems a bit stupid. Like Prime Minister Vajpayee used to say, you can choose your friends, but you can't choose your neighbors. And Pakistan is a very important neighbor. I think the most crucial neighbor as far as we are concerned.
Yeah.
So not talking to Pakistan, I mean, it can be a policy, this thing, but okay, then what then? Where do we go then? What next? So many questions arise, you know. Yeah, there are a lot of people who say, why should we talk to Pakistan at all? Well, how does Pakistan matter? You know, maybe it doesn't matter, but I think the question is that, and then we come back to the question of war, you know, and everybody has more or less agreed that war is not an option. So if war is not an option, or not going to be an option, other than, you know, a little this thing here or there across the border, then talking makes sense, you know, because what is the other option?
Right. Thank you, Dulat Sahab. I think we've had a fantastic discussion. General Sahab, where I agree with Mr. Dulat is that, you know, back in South Asia, we like a little drama. We like a little, we are Deshis, we like a little drama. Therefore, I think symbols have their value. I don't disagree that we need to have substance along with the symbols, but I think symbols do matter. We like that. Why not? So, you know, I at the end of this conversation and the way things are unfolding in Kabul, it is worrying to some extent. It is shocking to some extent, but one hopes that there is going to be peace and stability in Afghanistan. There's going to be a peaceful transition of power. If that's that's what is going to happen. You know, I always think that having read the book that you have written and listen to the conversations that you have had in the past, Indians and Pakistanis should actually take learn a lesson from the two of you on how to engage in a healthy debate on contentious issues such as Taliban, Afghanistan, terrorism, Kashmir, whatnot. I think thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been fantastic. And thank you everyone for watching the National Security Conversations.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dulat.